And so we call this 6 A's of positive relationships. And it can apply to marriages, it can apply to parenting, it can apply to friendships. So please, whatever you're looking for in your life, apply that to wherever you're at and apply these principles, because it's not just communication. These are how we communicate. This is what we communicate. This is, break it down. It's more specific of the way we do that. So, yeah, we're on the right screen. That's good. So let's have a look at this first one. Here's a thought. The way we're parented is often the way we parent. The way we saw our parents do married life is the way often we do marriage. And so that's why we have to be intentional and proactive in this stuff, you know, whatever area of life it is. Let me give you the scripture out of Matthew 7, verse 24, 27. It's like the foundation, or a strong foundation for this house we're building. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house. Yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand without foundations. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a great crash. So this is the first day of positive relationships, acceptance. Acceptance. You know, we as a church have got that love, acceptance, forgiveness as a philosophy. Acceptance is core, I believe, to every relationship we have in our lives. And, you know, it's that unconditional love that helps build a sense of security and worth in people in our lives, whether it's our spouse, our kids, our friends, all those areas. So it makes us feel like we belong.
That's exactly right. But I think sometimes before you can even accept the person that you're with or wanting to be with, there's a journey of accepting yourself first and who you are in God. If there's a constant struggle with who you are in God and accepting who you are, it's very difficult to accept how someone else is or how one of your children might be. So it's a bit of a journey for us all to kind of find out who we are in God and just know that God doesn't make cookie cutter people. Everybody's different, and those of you as parents would know that. You just practice on the first one and you think, right, got this in the bag, then number 2 comes along. And then you go, oh, who's this little person? And you've got to just change things and tweak them. And then when you think you got that one right, another one comes along and it's different again. So it's quite a challenge, isn't it? So it's not getting one child or a person, your partner, and moulding them and putting them into the person that you want them to be. It's accepting who God has created them to be.
That's good. And, you know, that's why we put so much value into youth group, because it's a positive peer influence. That's what a youth group is. It's a positive peer influence where the kids come and they're accepted. No matter where they're at in the spectrum of life, they're accepted in that place. That's why, I've said this before, where gangs are so the stronghold of that is so strong, because kids, rebellious kids often, kids that are mucked up, getting into a gang and they feel accepted for the first time in life. And that's why church is so important. We have an acceptance. You know, it's such a core principle, I believe, of a Christianity, that we need to accept those. We don't have to agree with everything. We just have to accept people and have an unconditional love.
And sometimes with kids, you have to separate acceptance of their behaviour to the acceptance of the child. Sometimes we don't like their behaviour and we don't accept their behaviour, but that doesn't follow through that we don't accept them as a child. And same with your partner. If they do something wrong, well, you don't just totally disregard that person. You just learn to talk about the behaviour. Separate that if you can.
Yep. And so acceptance means that person has got value. No matter if they stuff up, they make mistakes, they say the wrong thing, they don't do the right thing, whatever else happens, they still have value. And that we are all unique. That's the unconditional love that says, I love you just as you are. And so that's acceptance. Now, we're going to move reasonably quickly through some of these. We've got a pretty meaty section that we want to just pause on. I want to make sure we've got enough time to cover that. So the first one's acceptance. Second one is appreciation. Appreciation. Sincere praise and affirmation develops a sense of significance. We all want to feel valued and feel appreciated by others in our life. I think you'd say you'd agree with that. We want to be valued and feel appreciated. And when our life is valued by someone else, it actually brings us closer to them, I think. We also then are able to bring value and appreciate others in our life.
I think that acceptance runs into appreciation, because sometimes it's a funny thing with relationships. It's often the opposite that is really attractive. Nearly every course we do, seminar, there's always, well, not always, but a lot of the time, introverts are attracted to extroverts. The external processor is attracted to the internal processor. And it's that difference that attracts you. But guess what? It's the thing that drives you nuts. Okay? After a while, it's something you must be looking for what's completes you or what's different to you. But if you're not careful, within a very short period of time of being together, it drives you insane. So you then have to, but you can hang in there. But do you know what? As you mature and you understand this stuff, you get to appreciate it. I so appreciate Greg's thinking, deep thinking and introvertedness, because it brings something really special to the relationship, whereas I tend to be a bit more flighty and, let's just move and have fun. You just balance each other. So rather than trying to make the other person like yourself, it's understanding who they are and accepting that brings incredible depth, and it's appreciating the differences. Okay, so...
And this is just a nuance of it. Appreciation isn't necessarily responding when someone does something perfect or good even. Like, appreciation is appreciating them for who they are, no matter whether they're doing right or wrong. And so I want you to understand this, that sometimes that looking for perfection in our kids, for instance, can be a negative. If we only appreciate and affirm them when they're doing something perfect, it sets them up not well for life, because they think that's the time you get your praise, when you do something perfect. And so when they fail, they fall in a heap, or they choose not to try because, well, I don't think I can do this perfectly, and straight away they just pull back from it, and it doesn't build resilient kids as far as I'm concerned. So we have to be careful. We have to appreciate those in our life in all stages of life, not just when they do things really, really well, not when they got the A's on the report cards, not like that's, we've just got to guard against just having that in one area.
Yeah, and look, the world we live in is a pretty negative world, and people get beat up in the world. They need to come home, and home needs to be a positive, uplifting place. So they say it's about 5 positives need to be spoken to negate a negative. So if they're living and school's a bit rough, you need to be pouring on the praise, lots and lots of encouragement. It doesn't give them a big head. It just makes them feel appreciated and loved, doesn't it? Okay,
let's push into the third one. Sorry, it's affection. It's affection. Now, I'll read this. Caring words and actions that show our love and develop a sense of being lovable. You see, when we show affection to people in our lives, spouses, kids, friends, when we show that affection, it's caring words and actions, not one or the other. We have to have the caring words, but also then the caring and loving actions as well. And that helps develop a sense of being lovable in that person or that child. It's so, so important. And this is the one we want to just pause on just a little bit longer than the other ones, because we've got so many things we want to say here this morning. And that's when we realise we have to do a night just to process this stuff as well. Many of these concepts overlap, really. So we have to love someone well, we have to know what makes them feel loved. And then we also have to know what makes us feel loved before we can feel that same love. And this is where we get into a few concepts that are very helpful. The love languages, for instance. There's 5 love languages. And once you identify those, then you can understand, my partner doesn't feel loved the way I feel loved. We're different, we're unique. And I thought by doing the things that makes me feel loved for her, she will feel loved. And in fact, it doesn't work. It only makes me, and vice versa. So we have to work out what makes us feel loved and also what makes our partner feel loved.
And this works with children as well. I'm noticing this in our grandchildren. They're very different. What makes one feel very special is very different to another one. And I think love languages can change a bit. So you might go, I've heard love languages before. I think it can change. As time goes on, you go into different seasons in life and in relationships, and I think they can change. So it's good to revisit some of this stuff. It's good to sit down and think about your children, have a talk about, okay, what do our kids need? What does this particular child need? And then there they are up there, the acts of service, the ones where someone feels love when you're doing things, helping them in the small things, the gifts, not always about the big money and all the rest of it, but just a thoughtful gift. Physical touch, obviously, is the hugs and the kisses. Quality time, just being one-on-one, doing whatever. It doesn't even matter what you're doing, just that one-on-one. And the words of affirmation is that appreciation that we talked about before.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of this. We were quite close to a couple that went into separation and there was no signs that they were even doing it tough in their relationship. And it was like they didn't even do any counselling. You go, come on, guys, you have to do something. And they were pretty heading towards divorce pretty much. And we gave them a book, 5 Love Languages, in the early, this is back quite a few years ago now. And the guy read it and he said, oh, if I'd known this stuff when we got married, we wouldn't be in the place we're in right now. We have to resource ourselves for this sort of stuff. We can't just drift into life and expect to everything to come out rosy. It just doesn't. And that applies to marriages, it applies to parenting, it applies to friendships. We have to be intentional and proactive about this stuff. Now, love languages is one way you can put it. It's a simplified way. Another way we've got is the emotional needs. And each one of us has got a love bank inside our hearts, inside us. And the things that fill our love bank need to be identified. So as a partner or as a parent, we can start to fulfill that in them. Now, this is designed for couples, this particular group of words. And some apply on general to male and some apply on general to female. But there's no gender thing in this. It's across the board. And this is for a marriage relationship, by the way. And so each one of us has got this love bank in us, in our hearts. And if people fulfill that emotional need, it will put deposits into our love bank. Did you want to say something?
I was just saying, in any relationship, especially in a marriage, I don't think you can meet every need of your partner. Like it's good, you need to do that. But in the Christian context, God needs to be in the midst of meeting some of your needs. Sometimes I think you can fall into a relationship, and if you're a little bit, if you're quite broken, you can think that partner's going to meet every need that you have. Now, this is, we're teaching you how to add health to your relationship, but sometimes you've just got to make sure God's in there, meeting some of those deep needs that you may have, and that's that whole healing process and being made whole in Him. So it's a mix, isn't it? It's not just don't expect your partner to do everything and meet every need you have in life.
This will be some of the stuff we cover on our marriage night, the Love and Marriage. So I won't go into too much detail, but they're the emotional needs that generally have been shown to meet for married partners and partners to meet their needs and make that love bank. Now, here's where affairs comes into place. If, for instance, I'll use Robyn myself. This isn't exact, this isn't an actual thing, but I just want to use it. So, for instance, Robyn's emotional need is conversation. Mine isn't necessarily. So she could be having a real lack of conversation in her life. Now, she might be working with someone, and it might be of the opposite sex, that actually is really good with conversation. And so she goes to work every day, and that guy meets that emotional need and starts to put some deposits in the love bank. And each day she goes to work, and then the guy does it again and again and again. And I'm just going, oh, good, I don't have to talk anymore. She doesn't need me to talk anymore. So we're getting less and less discussion, and she's getting more and more at work. And the problem is she'll eventually fall in love with that person at work because I'm not meeting that need. And it's exactly the way affairs work. No one gets married and then decides to have an affair. It's just not, I'll get married, then I'll have an affair. No, who does that? No one does. But during the process of life, the stresses, the pain, the toughness of life, we just drift apart sometimes. And that's why we need to know this stuff so we can be intentional and proactive about applying that to our marriages and know that, she needs conversation. So I need, when I come home from work, to sit down with her and go, okay, how's your day? What happened? And not be flippant and go, oh, yeah, nothing? Oh, good, see you later. No, tell me what happened. Tell me why you're a little bit upset tonight. What's going on? And delve a little bit, question a little bit. Be consistent in that, because that way it builds her emotional love, her love bank with emotional needs that I'm providing, and increases to the sense of love, that love.
That's exactly right. So the love bank works in two ways. The stuff's going in, just like if you're saving for something, in goes all the deposits. But then if you can be doing all the right things, right, meeting all those needs of your partner. But if you're not careful, there's a plug hole at the bottom, screen, which we just use the word love busters, but they're often the things that are draining love. So you can be doing all the right things, but if there's some negative stuff in your relationship, that will just basically, like having a bath, pull the plug, out it goes. So we, okay.
Yeah. So basically, that's you can put as many emotional needs into the love bank, but if there are withdrawals happening on a regular basis, you can't get enough in there to balance it all up. And that's where we need to deal with those love busters, get them out of play, deal with them, work out strategies to get them off the list, and then we start to build the love bust. Now, what you need to do, personally for you, if you're in a relationship, married or whatever, you need to identify what fulfills your emotional needs, which is the things that press your buttons. And then also for the love busters, if they do exist in your relationship, you need to get them out of your relationship because you cannot build enough emotional needs if they're present.
And these are the things like when we get really angry and lose our temper, we're disrespectful in the way we speak to one another. Sometimes we develop bad habits. And in another thing in relationships, you can be very much an individual and spending your whole time as an individual rather than being in a couple. But it's only when you talk to one another and identify those things, you bring them out into the open and then you talk about them and then work out how you're going to get rid of them. So can you see all the good things going in, plug up the holes, and then your love tank actually feels full. And it's the same with your children. You can honestly use this in children. We found when we first did this that I was never angry at Greg. As Tristan said, we never shouted at each other. But raising 4 kids under 5 in stressful times, I would shout at the kids. And he identified in me that the angry outbursts I had with my children actually withdrew from his love bank, which was interesting. It wasn't aimed at him, but it was enough. It was just like, I don't like it when you do that. So I had to work out other ways of doing things. So it's interesting, isn't it? It's just all relationships are all intermingled in a family.
Yep. So we do need to keep moving because we're... So that's affection or love or care, whatever you want to call that. And I think that was the last screen there, wasn't it, Kev? Go on the next one for us. So the next one's availability. In a relationship, marriage, parenting, friendship, this availability is spelt T-I-M-E, time. Time. You just have to spend time with that person. It's got to be consistent. It's not just quality time. Remember the lie that went around at one stage that, if you just spend a little bit of quality time, it's all right, you don't have to spend lots of time. No, you just have to hang with each other. Whether it's a couple or you're with your kids or with friends, that's when it develops. Like, it was just lovely doing the working bee yesterday, just hang with the guys. I don't get much chance to do that very much these days. And it's like just doing stuff together as blokes, it just bonds you, and you build a relationship and you know each other and you know how they respond under stress and that's how you get to know someone. That's where that relationship is built, in the time spent together. Not just quality time where it's really monitored and programmed and just hanging together.
And that's for families as well. We do live in busy times and there's a lot of distractions in families, things like, having dinner together. I don't know what happens in anyone's home, but, sometimes things like that can just disappear. Everyone can go do their own thing, eat wherever they are in the house and on their own device and all the rest of it. I think there's a lot of things vying for our time in this day and age. So you really do have to be proactive in spending time with family and with each other. And we say to couples, when you, at the end of, say, the weekend, get your diaries out together and look at your week ahead and look at your week. But instead of looking at, I've got this meeting and and all the rest of it, you look at, as a couple, where are we going to spend time together? When are we going to have a night together? Or are we going to go out for coffee or a walk or something? Prioritise you as a couple first. Then look at your family time, prioritise them. Then you start to put in all the other things. But what we tend to do in life, we put in all the appointments, all the other stuff, and then you're exhausted and there's just nothing, you got nothing left to give those closest to you.
Yeah, that's right. And it's easy to say that, but you've actually got to do something about it. Your intentions could be good in that stuff. You've actually got to make it time, sit down, let's have a date night every week. Let's do this. What do you want to do? What can we do that we can have a date night together or going out together? And this can apply to our kids. It's not just a marriage. It can apply to our kids as well. We did dates with our kids and said, what do you want to do? And one wanted to go to an exhibition house and walk through all the exhibition houses. And you go, okay, I guess I can do that. And we just chatted about that and it was just fun. One wanted a meal, one wanted to go to the cinema. Let me read you this interesting quote. As a role as dads, it's really important we get this right because we can undervalue and underestimate this. Charles Francis Adams, the 19th century political figure and diplomat, kept a diary. It says this: one day he entered, went fishing with my son today, a day wasted. His son, Brooke Adams, also kept a diary, which is still in existence. On that same day, Brooke Adams made the entry, went fishing with my dad, the most wonderful day of my life. The father thought he was wasting his time while fishing with his son. But the son saw this as an investment in time into him. Don't underestimate the value of availability and time with kids, with family, with friends. That's how you build positive relationships.
I just want to mention the old mobile phone, okay? They're all wonderful, and they've given us availability 24/7. But guess what they've done? They've given us unavailability to our families. So, you just need to be careful. It's probably the younger people. We grew up, those of oldies, grew up without them, so we use them, but we know how to just put them aside. But young people, I totally appreciate it. It's a different world that you are growing up in, and we are attached to these things 24/7. But you need to learn to put them aside. I just see parents, the kids are there and they're on their phones. They're just ignoring. I think you're wasting a precious time in life with young families if you're always on your phone.
It's not just young families either. It's like you can
couples,
see it at a cafe or something like that.
Oh,
There's
my
4 young
gosh.
people sitting at a table and they're all on their phones. You go, you're talking to each other, or who are you talking to? It's like, no, we're not talking to each other.
Snapchatting. So look, we're not saying mobile phones are evil or whatever. It's just we've got to bring limits in. We do have to bring limits in to what we do with our devices, don't we?
Yep, we do.
Yep.
Okay, so availability. So the fifth one is accountability.
Yep.
And I think there needs to be an accountability in every relationship in our life if it's important to us. If it's not important to us, don't worry about it. But if it's important to you, make sure you're accountable to somebody. By being accountable to people in your life, you show respect and teach others in your life, your kids, partner, whatever, how to be accountable to you, which develops a sense of self-discipline and self-control. Self-discipline and self-control, accountability. I don't know about you, but I so often have thought that do what I say, don't what I do, don't do what I do. I'm just too busy to organise that. And it's a double standard, and it's not a positive message to send to kids or to our partners or whatever. It's deceitful, really, in the end.
And with this accountability, I'm not talking about control here, but I think you need to be accountable to your partner for where you spend your time and what you're doing with your phone and what you're doing with your computer. There shouldn't be secrets. There shouldn't be hidden things in life. If you're on a computer, you shouldn't be hiding anything from your spouse, okay? If there's trust in a relationship, we need to be accountable. Now, I'm not saying control. I know that relationships get abused and the power can shift. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about healthy relationships should be just open to whatever. Your life should be an open book. You should be able to read each other, shouldn't we? There's nothing we keep ever from each other.
Passwords, and not that's a big deal, but you can check any of my stuff anytime and vice versa. It's just the way it needs to be, and because honesty is an emotional need, one of them, but dishonesty is a love buster. So if there's any dishonest behaviour in there, it will cause great distress in a marriage, in families, in relationships, If a relationship is important to you, you need to be completely honest and transparent the whole way, and that brings accountability, I guess. So.
And boundaries with children. We all know kids need boundaries. If you don't give them boundaries, they go off the rails. But you need boundaries in your relationship. Boundaries about how you speak to one another. I'm not going to accept that tone of voice. If you want to speak to me, don't use that tone of voice, or I'm not going to listen to you. They're just boundaries you just need just to keep things healthy.
Because that's another aspect of accountability on the next screen there, Kevin. Accountability administered with love provides boundaries for making right decisions, develops a sense of self-decisiveness in our kids, in our relationships. So people feel like they've got a right to make their own choice because there's boundaries in place. We've talked about it, we've agreed on it, and we've set them up. And it's let your yes be yes and your no be no. We need to make sure we stay on that biblical principle and be really consistent with that. And kids grow really well when they've got boundaries in their life. When there's a lack of boundaries, they feel unloved. It's a stunning thing. If there's a lack of boundaries in kids' life, they don't know what the rules are, and so they're never really sure about what to do and how to do it. And so it's really important that we deal with that really well. We've got this. We're going to move quite quickly now. In the next screen, Kevin, there's those bottom four are based, you'd call them love. The top one, accountability, the next one is limits. And if you just go to the next screen, yeah. And limits are important, but they're also a covering of love on the relationship as well. So they actually produce this cover, and in fact, it's all love. The limits are all love as well. Like it's all when you think about love and how to produce those relationships. And in the right proportion, I guess, 80-20, that it should be 80% is positive and sowing into relationships. And there needs to be accountability and some limits as well in that process. And the sixth one we talk about is apology. Now, this isn't our marriage stuff. This is just, but it works really well for that. Apology. We all need to be free to apologise if we've stuffed up, if we've made a mistake, if we've done something wrong. We just need to be really open and free to apologise in those circumstances, because apology provides a sense of vulnerability. It helps open the door towards resolving conflict. Whether you've done it wrong or not doesn't matter. Apologise anyway. Start the communication, the resolving of conflict. It's not about me being right and her being wrong, or her being right and me being wrong. No. The apology is to start the communication. I'm sorry if I reacted the wrong way when you said that. It just caught me off guard. And can we talk about that now? Let's talk about it well and not in a conflicted sort of way. It's a good opportunity to let off steam, I guess, to let off the pressure of the situation. As young couples, when we had conflict, we'd both camp on each side of the bed, and I'd lay on my shoulder this way, and Robyn would lie on her shoulder that way, and there'd be about 2 metres between us, and you just, I'm not touching her, I'm not going anywhere near her. How dare her talk like that? Or be, and it's like, no, just apologise and get on with it. I'm sorry. I'm not sure even what I did wrong, but obviously it upset you. Tell me what happened. Tell me what this is all about.
And you grow into this. We were 20 years old, remember, and clueless, and didn't know God. But God, in his infinite wisdom, gives us in his scripture, in his word, he says, do not, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. There you go. See, once you've got God in your life, you know that that's a dumb thing to do. And you hardly sleep anyway. You're laying there thinking, if you just apologise, sit there and talk about it, then you can just relax. You get much better sleep.
I can remember laying there and not going to sleep because I wasn't going to roll over because I might touch her if I rolled over. It's just
don't listen to this, young people.
Dumb.
This is the wrong way to do
dumb.
it, okay? Yeah.
So dumb.
There's
a model we talk about in our marriage stuff. It's called the 3 states of mind, and it works really well in every situation. We all want intimacy in our life, right? Intimacy with our spouse, with our kids, with friends. Like, we want that. But very often we have conflict going on. And so what our job is to work out how to deal with conflict well. We have to be someone who sees conflict as an opportunity, as a positive thing, not as a negative thing. Because if we see it as a negative thing, we just go into withdrawal and we go into our cave and we never deal with the thing. And so we both have to be ready for it. It has to be both when both people are ready to deal with that conflict. But conflict is good. And you have to go, if you're in withdrawal at the moment, whether it's physical withdrawal, spiritual withdrawal, emotional withdrawal, there's another type, I don't know. But if you're in any of those withdrawal places, you don't want to interact with your partner or with your friend or even with your kids. Even with your kids. Even with your kids. Let that sit for a bit. And we're the grown-ups, if you're the adult here this morning. And we have to be the one that starts to deal with that conflict. We need to work out a way to get out of withdrawal, work through the conflict, so we get back to intimacy. Whether that's in a marriage, whether that's in a family, whether that's in a friendship. If the friendship is valuable to you, you work through the conflict to get back to intimacy.
That's right. And it takes humility, absolute humility. You've got to swallow your pride and go to the other person or go to your child and say, I'm so sorry, will you forgive me? And as a parent, you're actually modelling how God wants you to do relationships. So, they're watching. Children are always watching, okay? Watching what happens. So.
Look, we were way over time.
That's all right.
But can I... Have you got something more?
No.
Okay.
I didn't get my props out, though. I'm a bit sad.
You didn't get your props?
No, but I'm going to because we're going to finish up.
They weren't valuable anyway.
Oh, no, they weren't. They're all right.
Well, come on, show us what you got.
Really?
Let me, while she's getting that ready, let me read you this, because this is for parents. This is for parents. I've got a screen for this too. Stop distracting them, will you? If a child lives with criticism, he learns to condemn. If a child lives with hostility, he learns to fight. If a child lives with fear, he learns to be apprehensive. If a child lives with pity, he learns to feel sorry for himself. If a child lives with jealousy, he learns to feel guilty. If a child lives with encouragement, he learns to be self-confident. If a child lives with tolerance, he learns to be patient. A child lives with praise, he learns to be appreciative. A child lives with acceptance, he learns to love. The child lives with approval, he learns to like himself. The child lives with recognition, he learns to have a goal. The child lives with fairness, he learns what justice is. The child lives with honesty, he learns what truth is. The child lives with sincerity, he learns to have faith in himself and those around him. If a child lives with love, he learns that the world is a wonderful place to live in. So good.
All I wanted to leave you with, for those of you that are visual learners, you haven't heard a word we've said, but you'll remember the pom-poms. I want you to be your kid's best cheerleader and your spouse's best cheerleader. Okay, don't be the person in the relationship that when your spouse comes to you with a big idea, oh, I dream of doing this, you say, oh, that's stupid, you're never going to do that. You need to go, yay, you go for it. Shake those pom-poms, encourage them. Because that's what they need. That's what your partners need, don't they?
And if you're naked, it wouldn't hurt either.
I knew he couldn't resist himself. Stop. So be the cheerleader. And Greg was about to put these away from yesterday. Look out, I've got it. No, all these things we've talked to you about, if you do a course, whatever you do in life, you're given tools. It's your choice what you do with them. You can get the garden tools. They look amazing. You buy them from Bunnings. Go stick them in the garden shed. They'll stay amazing. But guess what? Your garden's going to be overgrown. So we're giving you some tools for relationships. Don't go put them in the shed. Don't go, oh, yeah, that was a nice message this morning. Get them out. Remember these tools. Okay? You get angry like, no, don't use them on your husband.
You won't get naked.
No. Don't use them like that. Use them to keep your relationship fresh and whatever. And I think that's probably time to go.